Welcome to How It Works with Holger. Today is something I'm quite sure you will need when you will build web applications with TMS Web Core. I'm going to show you how to download JSON data from the internet that might even contain URLs to pictures and how to display it on a web page. To make this interesting, I'm going to use NASA's Astronomical Picture of the Day service, which is an open web service everybody can use and subscribe to. Why did I get this idea? Well, yesterday has been a very special day. Artemis 1 has been launched and the new moon project of the United States of America has started. And in case you wonder why it's named Artemis, Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo, and we all remember Apollo 11, and sadly we also remember Apollo 13, but the Apollo project has been one of the most famous projects, I would say, of space travel to the moon. So I thought it would be rather fitting to use the web service with a nice picture of our space to demonstrate the features. Let's start by showing you the finished application. Here you see the astronomical picture of the day. Today is November 16th, 2022. And we'll also publish the author of the image, the copyright, and we're also going to show the explanation of the image. How does this data look if you request it from the internet? It's a JSON object right here with the copyright, date, explanation, and the URL, and also a high resolution image in case you're interested. We're just going to use the regular image URL. In order to download this image, you need to request a key from NASA. So you go to NASA, open APIs, that's api.nasa.gov, and click on Generate API Key. They will send you an API key that you attach to this request. So instead of just saying HTTPS and then planetary apod like this, which gives you API key missing, you also have to add question mark API key and then your API key. My API key is blurred right now, that's why you can't see it. And with that, you can request the current picture of the day with this record. And the task of the day is, how can we parse this JSON document? And sadly, it is not as straightforward for us as Delphi developers with most web frameworks, but TMS Web Core makes it amazingly easy since they introduced a new principle that is rather common in other programming languages, but sadly not in Delphi. TMS Web Core introduced the capability to have asynchronous methods wait for the answer of a web service, and that makes it easy to show data that has been requested from the web. You wait for the reply and then you show the information. So starting with the layout, the easiest part of the application, we drop a T-Web image control, size it accordingly. Of course, you can link your controls to other HTML tags to create a responsive web application. Well, we're just going to focus on the controls in this tutorial. So you drop a T-Web image control and two T-Web labels. The first label is named TXT author. The other label is named TXT explanation. In addition to just dropping them, I also set auto size to false, so they would be just as wide as the image. And I also set the word wrap property of the explanation to true so that we can have multiple lines for the explanation. The image I didn't change, I just named it image. That's all the changes I made. At the core of the application is the T-Web HTTP request, and I named it request. By default, the command it will send is a GET request, so the HTTP protocol has certain verbs, and we will use the get verb for this command to access the URL because we want to get the information from NASA, from NASA's API. And as the response type, as we have seen, we pick RTJSON. That means that TMS Web Core already interprets our response as a JSON object that makes it much easier to handle it in code because we don't need to parse a string, for example, and convert it to JSON. We can just use it as JSON. The application starts by issuing a load image request in the create event of the form. So when the application starts, immediately we call the method load image. And load image has something very special attached, a custom attribute called async. And that enables us to use this special await keyword, you'll see it right here, inside of the method. And I'll explain that in great detail what this does. We need two variables. The first one we need is a complex name called TJS XML HTTP request. What is that? Well, that is what the web JavaScript uses to give us information about the request, the HTTP request. And TMS Web Core wants to make it easy for us and is going to use the same name. If you go into other programming languages, it's called JS XML HTTP request. And as we're Delphi developers, we add the T for the type in front. That's how TMS Web Core does it quite often when it maps JavaScript things to the TMS Web Core world. And that we will use to get information about the request, the local variable. And we need the actual JSON object, which can be transferred into a so-called JavaScript object, TJS object. That makes it possible for us to access all the different fields or properties of this JSON object. But first of all, we need the URL for our request. I wrote a little helper class, tnasa apodservice.getURL. It's a class method right here, class function getURL, and it returns the URL. And that is just done so I won't have this big URL in the main form and a separation of concerns. I have one. I could have multiple URLs. I might have to pass in parameters. So that gives me a little bit more flexibility. In this demo, of course, it's a little bit over the top, but I just wanted to give you a hint how you can structure your code differently, even with TMS Web Core, because there's still quite a few developers that think TMS Web Core restricts us in some way, and that is definitely not true. All the features that you have in Delphi and more, you can use in TMS Web Core. In this case here, this is the key of the whole application, why I did this tutorial. This requests the information from the internet, and by that we call request.perform. And that is a method that allows us to use await. And what happens here is that this line waits for our request to be completed and then proceeds with the execution in this line. However, this wait does not mean that it blocks our application. That is not the case. It simply means that our code execution in this method will go on with the next line when the request has completed. Remember that request completed does not mean that the request has been successful. I don't check for this. There is no error handling in this. I would have to rep this and try accept in order to also catch all possible errors. I left this out. However, the key is that this await is not blocking our application. That means if we call await, your web application is still able to perform other things. That is handled by TMS Web Core. It just does mean that LREC gets a value when the web service request has completed. So you can code as if it was a normal blocking request, so to speak, which it is not, but you can code as if it were. So you don't have to take into consideration at all that this line of code could take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 second. You can just continue writing your code like any other application. And what we do is we assign the response, which is a JSON object, to casting it as a TJS object and assign it to L object. And that allows us to access all the different property values like URL, explanation, and copyright. We have to cast it to string because by default it is a TJS value, which is the most common top class for any value inside of a JSON document. So that means if we cast it to string, we can assign it to the URL property of the image, which makes the image control of TMS Web Core load the image, and assign the strings to the caption property of the two labels makes them display the information from the explanation and from the copyright field. And that's it. That's how easy it is to write a web service API client with TMS Web Core that shows pictures. So let's run it again. So when we run this, the onCreate constructor calls load image, and you can clearly see there's no blocking of any sort. You can also analyze this using the developer console, press F12, and then reload the application. And there we can see how the application is being processed. First, the index of the page is being loaded, then the scripts that are being linked. So this also uses Bootstrap. And here, this is our application that is being executed, and then the application loads more Bootstrap, loads our main form, and then does the API pre-flight, the actual API request with the data right here. That's the JSON data. And then we load the image by assigning it to the image component, and that loads the next, or triggers the next request by loading the image from the internet. And you can also see in the developer console, really cool, all the different time spans and different requests on this great chart. So I hope this has been a very helpful explanation how to get JSON data from the internet using TMS Web Core, how to parse it, and how to even display image information in a very easy manner using the await keyword, which allows you to write code in a, let's call it, sequential serial way, even though there is an asynchronous request going on in the background, but still await will wait until the request has been performed, and then the next line is being executed. And this makes writing asynchronous code very, very easy.